So usually the very first stitch that a bead weaver learns to do is flat even count peyote. And let me tell you what that means. Flat just means that we are creating a flat surface. It could also be done in a round form, which is normally called tubular, but what we're concentrating on right now is the flat. Even count means you're picking up an even number of beads when you start out. There's also odd count peyote, and I have a tutorial on how to do flat odd count peyote. I'll pop up a link here to that if that's what you're looking for. But for today, let's just look at the beads and see how we're gonna get this going, because this is so simple. Once you get it going, you're gonna fall in love. Let's take a look. So what I've done here is I created a stopper bead, and this is just a temporary bead to keep the rest of the beads that we're adding from falling off the end. So I just use any old bead that I have laying around that's not part of my project beads. The reason I want it to be a separate kind of bead is because I don't want this bead to accidentally get woven in to your project, because then you're going to be sad, because at that point you're going to have to tear it all out and get that bead off there. So all I did here was I picked up this stopper bead, I went through it once, and then I came back from the tail end and went through it again. And you'll see that there is a little piece of thread showing on the outside of the bead, and that's what we want, because we're just going to pull this off later. So then what you're going to do is you're picking up an even number of seed beads. So let's see here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll just randomly pick 8. The beads that I'm using here are delicas. The reason I'm using these is because they have a very cylindrical shape. You can see where they look like little bricks when you separate one out. You can also do this with round beads, just regular old seed beads, but it is a little bit easier when you're learning peyote to do it with this kind of shape. So delicas, aikos, or Toho treasures are all options for you that have this kind of shape. So we're just going to bring this down so that it's sitting right up against the stopper bead. Then I'm going to pick up the first bead of my next row. And what I'm going to do here is I'm kind of holding some tension on this, and I'm going to weave this bead so that this bead is going to sit next to that very last bead that I picked up on the thread. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip this guy because I want the new bead to sit next to it, and I'm going to pass through the next bead. And as I pull that tight, you'll notice how these just sit right next to each other like little soldiers, like a little neighbor, like neighbors. Then I'm going to pick up one more bead. I'm going to skip one for it to sit next to, and then I'm passing through the next bead. Kind of got an awkward angle here so that I can make sure that you guys see. When I pull my thread through these beads, what I like to do is put my finger over that intersection as I'm pulling. And the reason I do that is because it controls your tension and it keeps your beads from flying all over the place. So then I'm just going to kind of tighten that up, and you can see that that new bead is sitting right next to that guy. So then we pick up another one, skip one, pass through the next bead. Your first row is always going to be the hardest because you don't have a lot to hold on to here. And you can see how my thread kind of went all crazy on me there when I lost tension on it. And then we've got one more bead on this row to add. So we're skipping a bead, and then we're going to pass through the very last bead. Now, if you do this last bead and you accidentally have one more bead here sitting out here, that means that you forgot how to count. And instead of picking up an even number, you picked up an odd number. Or the other thing to look at if you have that happen is you want to go take a look at your little piece of beadwork here that you've got going on. And you want to make sure that what you've got are a set of 2 with 1 and a set of 2 with 1. And you want to make sure that they line up just like this, because occasionally you can accidentally skip an extra bead when you're going along, or things won't be lining up quite right, and that can throw you off. So that's how you can go back and make sure that what you just did was correct. So once we come to the end here, I always like to work from the bottom up. So what I do is I just flip this over. So now my thread is coming out the bottom. And what we just did is actually create the first 3 rows of beads. Now remember, we only picked up one set of beads for the initial round. We picked up 8 of those, and then we added and skipped beads. So we actually, on the second set, we only picked up 4 beads. This offset 4 of those initial 8 that we did. So this is actually now 3 rows worth. So the sticky outies here are 1 set. Here's another row. And then the sticky outies on the other side are your 3rd row. So that can be a little confusing for people at first. But that means from here on out, we're only going to be picking up 4 beads per row. And all you have to do is pick up a new bead, and now you're just going to pop through the next sticky outie bead. Some people will call that a high bead. Some people will call it an up bead. I go with sticky outie because I can't come up with all those very nice sounding terms in my head when I'm working with it. So sticky outie always managed to pop into my brain. So all you're doing as you go along here is picking up a bead and passing through the next sticky outie until you come to the end of the row, and you'll flip it, and you can just keep going. What I'm working with right now is all a single color, but there's no reason why you can't follow a color pattern when you work with peyote. And you can make really incredibly gorgeous patterns when you're doing that. And I have a video how to work with charts, and I'll pop a link up for that video also if that's something that you're going to be working on. And that, my friends, is just how simple flat peyote is, flat even count peyote. So go forth and play with it. There's lots of other things that you can do while I'm working with these delicas here. You can also work with triangle beads. They make a really cool surface, and things like cubes work up really nicely. They have those 4 by 4 millimeter cubes that work up really nicely in peyote. So play with different bead shapes in your peyote too to get some more texture. Have fun.